Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us in our APPI series, Focus on ARV, Learn by Doing. And we always have a topic. The topic today will be winning strategies. APPI is putting more and more of its energy and focus on developing and finding what we call precog pros. Those would be professional precoggers who have achieved a high enough hit rate that we are willing to start paying them. We've done other webinars on that, so we won't go into that in any detail, but I did want to mention it right here up front. Now, here's what we're going to be doing today. We'll begin with a tutorial and hints for newbies and oldies or veterans. And then I'm going to take about an hour to talk about winning strategies, including what I think is a significant improvement. And we'll talk about that, and I would like your reaction to it. Some of us are, in fact, using it now, but always remember the viewer is in charge, so a lot depends on whether it resonates with you or not. Now, then we'll actually go over and do feedback for the prediction we did a month ago. And I'm going to show you how this HAG does in fact play with the feedback session. And then we'll do a brand new prediction for a new month-long prediction, which we'll get the feedback for, and guess what? A month. So let's begin with a description of what ARV, Associative Remote Viewing, is all about in linear time. And this is going to be the sort of classic discussion that we've been doing. And ARV goes back, I think, at least to the 1970s or so. And this is the way it's been done since then, with minor modifications from time to time. Okay. In linear time, you see the time scale here. In linear time, the remote viewing session is very straightforward. The tasking, the cue is describe and or sketch your, and we use a 6-digit coordinate. Others might use letters. Some people just put in the date and their initials. But this is an important tag because whatever you do use for this is associated with the feedback target. So it's this tag that you'll see with your feedback target. And so that's your cueing. So, and there will be only one and only one target. Now, the feedback session, which in linear time is actually the last thing that you do when you get the feedback target that you were describing here. And this is when you see it, when you experience it, you get a chance to, one way of thinking of it is sending information back in time. Another way of looking at it is that this goes down to a universe of collective consciousness, a matrix, something so deep that even though in linear time it's coming late, it actually is down there all the time. The concept of an eternal now. Everything that happens is down all the time, so you can pick it up here. And that's what precognition is all about, and we know precognition works. We wouldn't be here if in fact you haven't seen it yourself, probably, at least most of you. So this is the feedback session. You have the actual target in front of you, and you really want to work it here because this is helps shine it in the matrix or the UCC. Now, how has this become practical? Well, in associative remote viewing, this becomes practical when we do the analysis of the remote viewing transcript. And when we do the analysis, we're actually able to make an investment decision. And it might be sports, it might be financials, but we're focusing more and more on financials now in APPI. And so you can make an investment decision in a binary ARV fashion. Now, ARV works in more than two possible choices, and we've done actually a fair amount of that. We feel it is best to stay with binary. You get more positive feedback and all that. Plus, for investments, you're basically interested in up or down, and we use stops and limits, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that now. So, since it's binary, since we're trying to find an up or a down, the concept of two possible targets. Notice the word possible here. These are now possible targets. At this stage in linear time, one is associated with up, one is associated with down. The actual target shown during this feedback session will always be what actually happens. It'll be associated with the actual up or down outcome. So if during the analysis phase, you get a really good match with the down possible target, that certainly would lead you to wager wisely, but in the down direction in that example. If there was a good match with the up, then it would make sense to wager wisely in the up direction because your remote viewer, where did the information come from? It came from the feedback session, which always includes what actually happened. So between the analysis and the feedback session, that's when you have an opportunity to make a investment. Now, precognition, and sometimes it's related to retrocausality, because in both cases, you can think of successful, purposeful precognition beginning with the feedback session right here, because this is the truth. This is where you shine up, if you will, the actual target, because you know what it is for sure. Yes, your tasking is back here where you describe and sketch your feedback target, but it starts here. And retrocausality takes that point of view, but it's really the same. It's the linking between these two that is significant. Retrocausality takes the direct perspective that you're causing backwards in time the information that is in your remote viewing session. And that's fine. That's a perfectly valid, in my opinion, interpretation of what goes on, since we're really doing something which is more outside of time and space than anything else. And that's where this universe of collective consciousness, the matrix, a higher self in you that has access to all information, past, present, and future. This is how they get combined. Okay, we've used the word feedback target. Let me explain to you what that is. A feedback target, in our case, is a photo site. Now, the photo site refers to the specific photographed site location at the specific time the photo was taken. Consciousness is expected to gather information from the photo, things like color, shapes, etc., and or move to that site at the time the photo was taken. Sounds and things like that, you could get by going to the site, but it is sometimes very obvious from the photo. Your task, as always, is to describe and sketch what can be obviously verified from the photo. And I want to emphasize this: obviously verified. We really don't want to stretch things too much. That happens too often and leads too often to misses. Now, things like your first impression gestalts, the big picture stuff that comes in when you first see the photo, obviously visual, sound, smells, taste, tactile sensations, emotions, ideas, anything which your nervous system can pick up, your subconscious can share from the target with you during your remote viewing session. But that's what we mean by a photo site. It's all which you can describe, but focused on the photo site. So this is an example of a photo site. So you obviously can pick up the colors. You can pick up that there's motion. I mean, that's easily inferred. You can pick up the sounds that if you were right here in this box, okay, in this location, you get the shapes. But what you don't get, and this is new. This is the first time I'm talking about HAG, which is well, I'll give you more details on that later, but it's harsh analysis with gestalts. And it's harsh because, it's really likely that there are people here, but they're not in this location. We really, in ARV, want to train you to describe what's in the photo. And that would be one of the HAG principles. And I want to remind you that the viewer is in charge. So you have to see how much of this will all resonate with you and how you want to incorporate it in your ARV. So these ideas are really straightforward once you accept the fact that information can be shared from the actual target in earlier time frames. That's why most people just don't get it. It's not perfect, and no matter how much you explain it to them, they don't even understand the protocol. And I think that's because they don't want to. They recognize that it's sort of too strange. And the implications are pretty far-reaching. The capabilities of consciousness are indeed huge. Now, this has been said by so many people, and it is true, and I encourage all of you to do this, and that is practice, practice, practice like a doctor or a shaman. Joe McMoneagle, who was just recently retired, did 6 sessions a week, like one every day. I guess he took Sundays off. Use it or lose it, all those kind of one-liners are true. You want to build up, I believe, a kind of a lifestyle where this gets naturally and easily included so that you get to do it regularly because you keep learning as you do it. Doctors are always learning. There's new information which comes along, and shamans are always doing things with their, quote, tribes, which might involve new and different things. But they're constantly there. Now, the last things I want to show you is sort of the user-friendly part of this, which indeed it is. We've done everything we know how, though we're open to suggestions, to make it easy for you so that you can use the protocol very easily, and you can put really your energy into doing your RV sessions and your feedback sessions, and work with an analyst or be your own analyst. But this is an example. The tasking email, which is the step one, to describe and sketch your feedback photo. Here's where you would click right here, and you would get your coordinates, and it will ask for your email address because this is personal to you. And something like this will come up. You'd put in your email address. We're going to be doing webinar workshop, but you might be in one of these other groups. And then your coordinate will come up right here. I've just described and sketch your coordinate feedback. And the coordinate will be there and there. So you will, in fact, be ready to go to do your remote viewing session. And that's step one. Now, step two, which actually comes from the same page, because right after you've got your transcript in front of you, you want to, you or your independent analyst, notice here, if you have an independent analyst, you email him or her your transcript, and they upload it to our server. And it's only when you upload it to our server and then you click submit that you will then get to see the two possible targets. So an independent judge or yourself. And of course, if you do it yourself, you're in a very different mode. You're in an intellectual mode. You get into a place where you feel like you're a different personality, almost a different person than when you were doing the remote viewing session or feedback session, because this is very intellectual. So when you click that submit button, what you will first actually get is photo site A to judge, and then you go down further in the page, you get photo site B, and then you go further and you see here. Now, some people like to come here right away. I really like people to do photo site A all by itself, mark their transcript, analyze their transcript, wipe that from their memory, then go to photo site B, and then go to both of these pictures, possibly do a review. In fact, I think that makes sense. I go over it again. And then here is where you put in the TARG 0 to 7 scale. You can click it here. I'll be showing you that later, but that scale is here. So that's step two. And then step three is the feedback email. Again, there's always a simple link that you click. We repeat the event so you know you're being reasonable. And this is an old example. And once you click that, you then get, I think that was not quite right, but then you get your feedback target right here. Okay. And this is an example of that. So you would have your coordinate now, which is the tag to this feedback photo. You then do your feedback session, and I'm going to show you examples of that shortly. And leave notes. A lot of you decide not to leave notes. I really recommend you do during the judging, whether it's independent or you do it yourself, whoever the judge is, leave notes, and then during the feedback target. Because all this is saved on the server, and so you can access it later for learning. Are there patterns? Okay, so before I go on to winning strategies, let me ask if there are any questions about the ARV summary that I did. Do you feel comfortable with it? Okay, good. So now let's go into winning strategies, which is what all of us are working on. Remote viewing session winning strategies. Much of this, but not all of it, comes from Tom McNair and our last conference workshop in Vegas. And this was one slide he put up, the sheep and goat effect. You know, the sheep are believers, the goats are not. And getting deep in you that not only are you a believer, but you know it as close to knowing as possible that you can do this well. That's what we mean by the sheep. As time goes on, you're going to be trying to remove doubts, et cetera, which is what the goats are filled with. Now, Carl Jung, who I think you know, Jung, something in us sees around corners and knows beyond time and space. He was into all of this long before it was called remote viewing, as were millennia ago the I can't believe I'm blanking on it, but I haven't used it for a while. I'm sorry, but it'll probably come to me later. But this goes way back to the Greek times when come on, somebody help me. I think you guys know what this is. Okay, well, I apologize for that, but it will come to me. Anyway, it goes back millennia, where precognition has been around. It was around in the Bible, but it goes back even further than that. And then James George says, sense and listen so that something can act on us when we are sufficiently present to receive it. So all of this is remote viewing like. And, you know, they put it in different contexts because they're not talking about remote viewing, but I think you can seeing around corners and beyond time and space. And this one really gets to this idea of sense, get quiet and listen so something can act on you. Guess what that something is? In our context, that's the subconscious mind, the higher self, something bigger than your normal ego. That's what's so marvelous about what we're doing, is we're really getting in touch with something bigger than what we would call our normal physical world self. Now, more things here. Many of these: describe, don't analyze. You know, you get rounded, orange, textured, firm yet pliable, less dense on the inside. Don't jump to orange. That would be your intellect coming in. You want to declare an analytical overlay if you were to say orange. I mean, it could be a basketball, or who knows, you might get more information with smells and tastes, and it might turn out to be a pumpkin. The subconscious gives you generally words of this sort before you get into naming in AOLs. You don't want to name in AOL. That's largely a high-level, egotistical, and not in a negative sense. You know, we use names all the time in our day-to-day life, and that's fine. But the subconscious goes one level deeper and uses, and it is deeper. These are the kind of things you learned when you were young. They're deeply entrenched entangled with you, and it seems like most of the time, especially early in remote viewing sessions, these are the kind of words that come up before the naming. And let the analyst decide from these words what it is. But if one of those words comes up, mark it as an analytical overlay, put it on the right side of your sheet, and move on. Okay, so what else? Don't overcomplicate. Simple is best. Focus on session structure. Now, I want to say, even back here, I want to say a little something. Tom was trained by Ingo Swann in CRV, Controlled Remote Viewing, Coordinate Remote Viewing as it started. And there they have a very specific structure. A lot of us don't use that structure, but nevertheless, you do have a personal structure that you've established. And this idea of focus on that structure is so important because this is very general. You let your conscious mind focus on your structure, where to put the data in the session structure that you've established for you. And then while that conscious ego-like physical day-to-day like mind focuses on that, your subconscious mind, your higher self, whatever you want to refer to it as, that's where the data is being received, and that's what you put on your transcript. And that's your job. When you're remote viewing, you describe the perceptions that come from the subconscious mind. Objectify everything. Don't self-edit. Whatever comes up, get it down. Now, we know it comes up fast, but get it down as much as you can. And if data is out of structure, if you've named something, consider an AOL break. And I've seen Tom, his breaks typically are very short, 15, 20 seconds, whatever it takes for you to drop that, put it on your sheet, that sort of gets rid of it, and then get back into your session. And if it's correct, it'll come back again. Now, for your CRVers, he specifically suggests S1, stage 1 through stage 3 is probably enough, maybe a little of stage 4. And these usually take 1, 2, 3 pages. Okay. Now, here's another quote from him. Which is, while it may be gratifying to have a high percentage of your data elements correspond to one or the other target sites or both, the ultimate goal is to view and identify only the correct target site. I've seen people who are doing self-judging get a really good match to the wrong target, and they are kind of delighted. Hey, look how psychic I am. You don't want to encourage that kind of mindset. The only mindset that matters, that's valuable, is how much did you get on the good stuff that matches the actual target. And as you're going to see shortly, that's part of HAG. So the ultimate goal is to view and identify only the correct target site. Incorrectly correlated data elements confound correct target site selection. Okay, now what about the analysis? This is where HAG comes in. Let me give you a rough history of this. And I just didn't have time yet to go back to when Russ and his group at SRI developed a 0 to 7 CR system that we've been using now for many, many years. And we have so much data with that, that even as we make modifications, and the first modification we made was when Joe McMonagle added this concept of gestalts being worth half of the analysis. So he upped the importance of gestalts, and I totally agree and accept that, and was using that for, I don't know, I guess it's been a couple of years now, and it made sense. And again, the viewer is in charge, but I certainly recommended it to everybody. But then we turned his into a 0 to 7 system as well. And now Tom McNear adds really this harsh analysis with gestalts. And you'll see what he means by harsh. He changed the word, but I think it's appropriate. And that led to HAG. And well, I'm going to show you this shortly. It modifies the denominator in what Joe McMonagle did. So it changes things in a couple of ways. Now, this TARG system has been around. I'm going to go through it pretty quickly, but it's the 0 to 7 system. Little matches down here. 3.5 is wagerable. 4, you now feel that you're into a psychic match with the target, and you've got good correspondence with a 5. Unambiguous, unique, matchable elements. And 6 is where the analytical overlay information might come up, where you name the target or you name the function of the target. So he laid it out in this fashion. And people always had trouble between. 3 said, yes, you had psychic information, but it was just on the margin. 4 is good correspondence. We made 3.5 wagerable. Now, in all of these cases, we did matching as follows. We would match to photo site A by marking A's or little a's. You see big A's and little a's. And every element, and an element might be a picture, though sometimes pictures actually have multiple elements in them, or none. There's some elements which don't match either. But you would mark all of those, and just notice in this case, if you did the simplest possible, and here's B, which turned out to be a hit. She ranked it based on a 5, just using the straight TARG scale and her intuition. But had you just taken 24 and divided it by the 34, and 34 total elements, including the ones that were not marked either way, got a 4.9. So some people, I think, are still using that. But here is where Joe came in, and he had 50% weight for first impression gestalts. The first impression gestalt is the thing that smacks you in the face, gets you in the ballpark of the target, and there can be more than one of those. And he gives 50% weight to the element matching. So here's that formula again, and I think this example is the best way of using it. So this is the same thing we saw before. There were 24 over 34, which was 0.7, and I multiplied that times 7 to get the 4.9 before. So we are using the full 34. In this case, if you look at this, the fig, I gave it a 1. You want to give it a 0.9, you can, but everything was here. Had water, had the mountains, had the sky, had trees, liquid, green, large. It basically captured all the gestalts. So the formula here is first the fig, which was a 1, plus the ratio times 3.5. That gave a 5.95, actually higher than here. Okay, now what's the HAG do? So the definition of harsh is ungentle and unpleasant in action. And for many of us, and I include myself in this, if we could see even a remote relationship, we would mark it. Now, with harsh and the way he changed the words, this is Tom, these are his words, be especially rigorous, assiduous, judicious, and discerning when assessing the correlation of data elements to possible target site A. If it doesn't strictly correlate to possible target site A, don't count it. Namely, be harsh. And don't allow confirmation bias to creep in. Confirmation bias is, you start doing your analysis and, hey, it looks pretty good. Another element comes up and, well, you stretch it a little bit because you already think that it's photosite A. That's called confirmation bias. And of course, you do the same thing for photosite B, okay? And then harsh for gestalts as well. Be especially rigorous, assiduous, judicious, and discerning. I love it. When assessing the correlation of first impression gestalts to possible target sites A and B. So you're going to get a gestalt for A, you're going to get a gestalt for B, and you're going to get the ratios for both, but in a harsh, rigorous, assiduous, judicious, and discerning fashion. Okay, so that's what's different. Let's see now. This is something else. Count up only the data elements you have labeled as A or B, and use the sum of these data elements as the denominator to your scoring formula. Those data elements not labeled as A or B should not be incorporated into the total. So you remember with the mechanical approach, 50-50, yes, you had a fig, which is always between between 0 and 1. And then this ratio is always between 0 and 1. However, in the mechanical approach, this would include elements that were not in either target. Here, by data elements, these are the data elements were marked as either A's or B's. So one more example to try to make this clear. What I've done here is taken off the little b's based on, just as an example, again, the viewer is in charge, but the fact that you gave them little b's meant maybe that they were not as strong. And so as an example, I took them out. There were 6 of them. Now, with 6 of them for B, she had 24. The B she counted as a half, so I subtracted 3 points in terms of what the B's were being harsh. So instead of 24 points, we got 21 points for the B. And the HAG count now goes to 26 when I count up all of those that are marked with A's and B's, but I had to subtract dripping and wind, and there were a few others here. And that now came out to 26 from 34. So the formula is now, well, the ratio is 21 to 26. This is the ratio that you use, and that's now 0.8, where before it was 0.7. I left the fig as 1, and then you multiply that product by 3.7, so we can get 3.5, so you can get between 0 and 7, and now you get a 6.3. So using the HAG approach, this actually got higher, and I suspect it's going to be different, though this denominator will always be less than the other approach, which tends to make this higher. However, the number of matches being harsh tends to be lower, so who knows? And also the fig you're going to be harsher on. So that's it. This is the new HAG approach, which I'm testing with the person I'm doing analysis for. Donna, and we'll see. I actually encourage any of you to try it as well and keep track. You need to do 10, 15, 20 of these and see how it both feels and see if you do better. There's one other aspect of this that I'm going to get to later, but this is the judging aspect of it. Okay, here's more suggestions. And again, content be damned. That's actually a quote from Ingo Swann. And you want to focus on your personal session structure. You all have established a structure. You may change it from time to time, but you know what your structure is. You put your ego, physical personality self focused on that. Hey, you've got to get stuff down on the transcript, right? And then you record everything. You stick to the data, the signal from your consciousness, and that stuff comes up fast. Once it's open, that signal is fast. And just allow the data to progress, the relentless progression of the data, and declare AOL breaks when you need them. If you think your analytical mind is coming in. And I can't emphasize how important I believe that is, because look how significant it is if you can distinguish information coming from your higher self, coming from your deeper self, coming from your subconscious versus your day-to-day physical self. Hey, we live in a physical world. We have to have that information. Nothing wrong with it. It's great. We should be as intellectual when it's appropriate as we can. But the subconscious has more information than the intellect ego self. So declare AOL breaks when you see this intellect ego coming into play. And he suggests, when you're doing your remote viewing, developing a summary and only summarize the data that you got. And he also recommends keeping a journal. And then record your perceptions. Don't turn it into something it isn't. Now, there are two ways to go. You can try to enhance the direct signal, or you can try to remove the noise. It turns out that Ingo and Swann and Tom all agree that the way to go is to remove noise, to just let the signal come through. And how do you do that? Have you seen this one before? Focus on structure. Declare all AOLs, any missed signals, naming things, confusion. When you feel it's appropriate, when you're losing the signal or gone someplace else, declare an AOL. Allow the AOL of confusion to subside, take the coordinate again, and move on. And feelings and verbiage in sequence are more important than visual representations. He said that, and I have seen this, where a whole bunch of words and feelings will come in, and they'll all be right. They'll all match the actual target. But visual representations, and he says this later, are also very important. And I think when these correspond is when you feel the most important. And again, focus on structure. Obviously, Tom wanted to emphasize that. Okay, structure and sequence. He specifically suggests about thinking of your piece of paper as being 3 columns. And you go left to right, top to bottom in sequence. And so that's how your analyst, and it might even be you, can see how the information is coming and how it correlates in time. Are you getting a whole bunch of good information? Are you getting sketches associated with that good information at about the same time, etc. And record everything, allow the data to progress, record just your perceptions. Don't turn it into something it isn't. In other words, just watch out for your analytical mind coming into play, and let the analyst analyze. You don't need to figure anything out. You just record your perceptions. Declare the AOL breaks and identify the AOL. And again, stages 1 to 3 and a little of 4 for ARV. Here we just want enough information to distinguish between the two possible targets. And he wants a comprehensive summary, and write the summary for the analyst's understanding. Now, what I've added here is when I've seen people's summary, all they did was give what had come before, and I didn't quite know how to judge it because they would pick out some of the stuff. I want in a summary like new insights, and that comes when you write the summary. Dom says that's one of the reasons you do it, and sometimes you'll get new data elements. So yes, put that in your summary for sure. Now, what about the analyst? Understand the stages, and I said of your remote viewer, whether it's you or you're an independent analyst, understand their approach. Look for a progression through the stages, and look for progression of the data within stages. Sometimes you'll just get more detail about one word, and it'll just follow that word. And then here's where basic shapes and forms are most accurate. And the example he gave was if the target were the Eiffel Tower, just a triangle is more of what you would expect than a detailed drawing of something like the Eiffel Tower, especially early on for ARV. Are the data following the drawings in structure? Have AOLs been declared? Were they appropriate? And out of sequence data are suspect. Now, this has a lot of meaning to the CRVers, but it may have meaning to your structure as well. Okay, now let's talk about the feedback session. How do you improve analysis during your feedback session? And this is brand new and part of HAG. And notice here I've added if on a hit or high CR pass. We are now, and I'm willing to say just because it feels so good to me, but I do not have any data to prove it, plus it may be personal, but I am now suggesting and that you give no feedback for misses. In other words, we're now at the feedback session. And I'm the independent judge for Donna, if she were to get a miss or sort of a low pass, and I'll explain that in a minute, I'll simply tell her no feedback for that coordinate, and then we'll move on. We want to do a lot of feedback, for the hits. We want to enjoy our hits. But for misses, and I know this goes against most advice, including mine. I, for years, have been saying the more to learn from misses than hits. I no longer believe that. So I actually just started thinking about that, and I wanted to see if there was any evidence. I could find no evidence for that. And here is a relevant quote that supports no feedback for misses, in my opinion. In the article, Finding the Coaching and Criticism, Professors Heen and Stone found even well-intentioned feedback spark an emotional reaction inject tension into the relationship and bring communication to a halt, no matter the position or years of experience of the feedback recipient. So this is directly related to this. When you're doing feedback with a miss, it's taken as a criticism. Obviously, you're not feeling good about it. You know you got a miss. Your transcript doesn't match the target very well at all. If you're self-judging, you might know that you had a displacement, which will really piss you off. So the no feedback for misses just fits that. There's more. People want to learn and grow, but they also have a basic human need for acceptance. Unsolicited one-way feedback hurts. Solicited feedback, which is what we do, can also hurt if you don't engage the person to understand their perspective, their choices, and acknowledge their good intentions. Well, yeah, we can do all that, but you're still sitting here with one-way feedback. No matter what they say, they're not going to make that session particularly good. Now, Professor Kepex says sensory information, and this is, a formal laboratory, sensory information impacts how we learn. When we recall victories from winning strategies, positive behavior is reinforced. So the victories, winning strategies encourage this positive behavior. And he easily talks about the dopamine release, builds confidence, and increases the chances the person will make quick, clear decisions when faced with similar situations. If anybody wants, you won't be able to click on these links, but I'll be happy to give them to you. Okay, so no feedback for misses. That goes along with HAG. And at first, when I thought about it and Donna thought about it, I want you to know our reaction was probably very much like yours. Huh? What? No feedback. I want my feedback. Well, yeah, when you get hits, but not when you get misses. We don't think there's as much to learn now from misses in terms of feedback, period. And when you get hits, you do get to learn a lot. You get to see the transcript and all that. So what is the hit feedback protocol? Encourage more and more hits by celebrating. Enjoy feeling really good. Notice all the matches in the transcripts. Be happy, feel happy, really happy that your communication channel, right, between the UCC, the matrix, and your conscious mind with whatever is in between, that communication channel indeed worked. You've got this connection with this infinite well of information, which matrix, UCC, whatever you want to call it, outside of space and time. So this is your consciousness, your sub, the UCC, how all that is connected. That worked. Have an M&M. That was what Ingo always used to suggest. But basically, just celebrate. Feel really good. Look at your transcript. Look at the feedback target. See what really worked well. Learn something. Hey, you still could add something that maybe you wish you had done. You can work it. This is the time, but you're working it with a very positive attitude. And you'll never stop learning. There's always more to learn. And I think as you do this more and more, your sub is going to just help you deepen this learning, so it just becomes a natural part of you. Okay, what do I mean by high CR passes? Well, you probably know. It's like when you get a CRA and a CRB equal 5, equal 4. 6, there might very well be something you want to share with the viewer about which one of those were the winning target. Hey, you really did well here. You'll only do the feedback target with them. Um, you might tell them that that was a pass or not. Again, you're the analyst and the one sharing the information. You're the only one, if you're an independent analyst, that knows this. If they're the judge, they already know it. But I think when there is a good session and something to share, you indeed can look at the high confidence ranking passes and pass on valuable information for the viewer because it was obviously a good session. Okay, so that's also an opportunity to learn something. Now, what do you do for misses and most passes? Nothing. You basically say no feedback and move on. And the person, Donna already is quite happy to do that. At first, she didn't like it. Most viewers don't like it, but in the context of what I just showed you, I think you can appreciate that if it's a miss or, you know, a session where both things are down at the 2 or even 3 level, why bother giving feedback? Because it's going to be more negative than positive. Okay, here's some more suggestions. This is from Tom, and it's Ingo identified 4 categories of information pertaining to sketches. Now, I think these all actually pertain to the word descriptions as well. And the key thing here for error contributions, the viewer got the basics correct, but the analytical mind contributed incorrect elements trying to help. So beautiful, but you want to set those aside. So those are like ARLs. This one is similar. Associations. The signal processed to a point that it triggered the analytical mind to offer known data. Hey, that orange or basketball, to try to help. Where the AOL is identified and cleared, the viewer should seek to understand how the AOL presented differently. And so that's, the analyst can share this with them, when appropriate. And then lack of fusion, but the viewer shouldn't worry about that. They may have many correct elements, but it makes no sense to them. It used to be said the viewer is the last to know, and especially in short sessions, that is often true. Let the analyst do the assembling. And accuracies. The most accurate data should be studied so the viewer and analyst can both learn from it. That's why we're now paying more attention to hits. The viewer should seek to understand what was different in the way this highly accurate information presented during the session. The most accurate data should be studied. Okay, the primary benefit of ARV and applying precognition is creating a strong working relationship with your subconscious mind, your higher self, the matrix, the UCC, or whatever you want to call these non-physical aspects of you and the universe. We go through so many details, we use so many words, but I really believe this is the primary benefit. I mean, what you're learning about is your bigger self, your grander self, your magnificent self, which we all have. And It just seems living in the physical world, that magnificence tends to get buried way too often. Okay. We started, yeah, okay. I think we're pretty much, in fact, if anything, we're ahead of schedule. Are there any questions, comments, anything you want to ask me about? We will be using the HAG. So that's sort of on purpose. The more you see it, hopefully the better it'll sink in. But are there any questions on the suggestions? Oracle of Delphi, thank you. And that's back to the Greek times. Okay, and Karen, you like that idea of no feedback from Mrs. Wonderful. Start using it, and please stay in touch. I mean, what we're basically embarking on here, and we've just started as well, Karen and I. So this is truly an experiment in quotes. We do, it's not like a real formal experiment, but it's certainly a practical experiment. And I'd love to see how it goes.
Marty, it's Katina. I have a question.
Sure, shoot.
I'm thinking about to Ingo, and did Ingo give feedback or give positive reinforcement when there was a miss? What does anyone remember what Ingo used to say about that?
I don't know what Ingo did. I think he tended to do nothing, and when they did good stuff, he'd give them M&Ms.
That's okay. That's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah, that was my thinking. This idea of doing nothing with misses,
big change,
is really a big change. And first the suggestion was, and I don't know if Tom did it or Donna did it, is let's delay it if it's misses, just to try to do something different with it. But then I said, hey, why not just get rid of it completely? So, and that seems to be resonating, at least with a few people. And if it resonates with you, use it.
I'm going to try it. Thank you.
Okay. Now, Niles asked me any suggestions to improve and practice to avoid displacement, the D word. Believe it or not, that's what this HAG stuff is all about. It, I believe, will improve your hit rate and ultimately your subconscious is going to get that, why should I describe the other picture? I'm never going to see it if I'm right. I don't get any reinforcement from it. And I believe, but only time will tell, that it will tend to reduce displacement. And also this idea, all of HAG, the idea of being harsh and no feedback for misses, I believe will reduce displacement, and only time will tell. Other questions, comments? Okay. So let's get into feedback for last month. And for some of you newbies, this will, I think, give you some information about feedback and how easy it is to get and everything. This was the tasking email that we did a month ago. So the tasking was, will the SPI, and that's a stock/ETF, it follows the Standard & Poor's 500 very closely, but divided by 10, between 10/1, October 1, and November 5. Okay, so that was like yesterday. So for that month period, will SPY move up or will it move down? And in a session just like we're about to do next, when we do the prediction for the next month, people clicked there and went forward. It turned out in this case it was a pass. There were 3 no's and 2 yeses. Some people actually added stuff afterwards, but obviously I didn't count that. So we made a prediction and it was a pass. And notice everybody in the webinar group will get it, but this is just what you would get in your group. So here's a price chart for the SPY. Here's the prices here. You can see it on both sides. It's, you know, a little under 300, went over 300. Here is October, I don't even remember the date, October 1 here. And then here was November 5 here. So clearly it did go up. So the outcome is yes. Remember, the tasking was, will it go up between those dates? And I want to emphasize to you that only the computer knew that yes would be associated with photosite A. This box down here comes from our server, and our computer server randomly does yes or no with either this or here. So this could have been no, yes. And so that's random. But the fact that it was the first one says it's associated with photosite A. That's the way the system works, and it's the computer that does that random selection. Okay, so those of you who were here a month ago may want to do your feedback now. And what I can do is click it here to get that for you. But I will say I'm about to do, notice you click there, just like I said, you put in your email address, and I would now press here and I would get my feedback. But I don't think I even did a session just because, you know, I'm too busy running this. But this is all you would have to do to get it. And if you want to, you can do that now. On the other hand, I'm about to give you two examples, and I'm going to show you a little bit about how at least I think HAG would work here. So this is one example. This was a hit. I'm only showing hits. In fact, in the past, I occasionally showed a miss just to discuss it. And I have to tell you, I did have feelings that the person at the other side did not appreciate it, you know, because even though I didn't tell their name, their handwriting, and their name might have been on there. Anyway, this is a hit. This is the target for 229835. Okay, so this came directly from his feedback photo. That's Brett. I see Bert. I don't know. I don't think Brett is here. He did a CRV session. This is stage 1 with his ideogram, and this is what's called the B and the C. And this is stage 2, this is stage 3, and this is a little bit of stage 4. Now, I did an analysis to show, and this was photosite A. So I didn't have photosite B, so I couldn't do a full analysis. But you can see that right on, he got the gestalt of water. So he got the A. The F is just abbreviation for the first impression gestalt. Okay, clearly got that. Clearly got blue. I consider that to be a first impression gestalt. Got airy. I put that in as a first impression gestalt as well. And then loud was another first impression gestalt. And so was structure. And look at this shape here. And look up here. So I thought that was excellent, and I made that a first impression gestalt. I didn't think I had a stretch for any of these. Now, others, notice you got a lot of other stuff too, soft and hard, but I didn't consider those to be at the level of a gestalt. When I would first look at this, you know, soft hard was not at least something that would hit me, but it's accurate. So it's got an A, bubbly's got an A, tall has an A, wavy has an A. Again, tall. So you can see this is really good. He gave it a 3.5. The other one was a 2.5. So there might have been between all of them a lot of total data elements. But my sense is that if he were to use the formula, he would have gotten even higher than 3.5 on this appropriately. I mean, to me, and I think you will agree, this looks like a pretty good session. And again, not getting some things is now underplayed. Harsh is the word here. You know, like the word things. Are there things in here? Hey, I could have marked that with a little a, but I'm not going to do that. So, okay, that's that one. Now let's look at this one. Teal. I don't see teal here either. Okay, teal. This was her, I believe, feedback. And look at this, and you know, you can imagine what your first impressions were. Here is what she did, which is very interesting. Most people don't do as complex sketches, drawings as this. Primarily, it might come at the end of a longer CRV or other kind of session, but here's what she gave, and here, and this just raises some interesting points. But I took these verticals, and notice how these were highlighted. You know, everything is sort of significant. At least I took it as the analyst as being significant. I took these as being the tallness, a fig for this. Obviously, structures was a fig. And lines, you know, there's so many lines here, both vertical and horizontal. I marked that. This could have been a lot of the verticals, could have been the water. I felt that the verticalness of it and the way the water was enough for me to give it an A. And see this base down here? I gave it an A as well. But you know, that was it. This was obviously an AOL. Amusement theme park may have been an AOL. And I just did nothing with this, which seemed to be another element here. But what I want to point out to you, and I don't really have an answer to this, is if I were just to look at the figs here, what might be figs like structures and these lines, it's a perfect match going this way. But if I looked at what's missed, well, the sky, blue, water, those would be the kind of figs that I might see as well, though this would certainly be dominant. And what all that means is analysis is a bitch. I don't know how else to put it. There are judgments which have to be made. That's why we call it analysis judging. Tom doesn't like the word judging, but in fact, you have to make some decisions and choices. And this is one way of thinking about it. The fig you would mark a lot lower if you are disappointed that you didn't get blue and sky, for example, and maybe even water. But going the other way, she sort of captured this, and this was what she picked up on, and she got that quite well. Okay, so feedback is for learning, and it's for learning for both the analyst and the remote viewer. You know, those two different hats, and they both have so much to provide to you as an individual about how the subconscious communicates between the UCC and your conscious mind. Okay. again, practice, practice, practice. And we have lots and lots of groups, so you can do virtually as many of these as you would like, 2 a day, up to 2 a day. And I'm not even recommending that. I actually do recommend 1 a day, which is very much like what Joe did. And then you can build into your life a cycle of doing 1 a day. It's a poor sort of memory that only works backwards, the Queen remarked. I like that. That's from Alice in Wonderland. But here is another suggestion, and turned out Joe Gallenberger said this many, many ways. He's really strong on getting to a love heart center, and I certainly would agree with that. So enjoy your precogging, love the learning, and you're learning about yourself, and get into a loving place as much as you can during your remote viewing session, during your feedback session. Even the analysts should get into a kind of a loving, positive place. Why not? That's a good place to be. So why not bring it into your precogging? And then just the opposite end of that is the analytics, but I think have to mention it. Some people choose to actually not look at it except very occasionally, if at all, you know, and if so, that's fine. The viewer is in charge. But the analytics do contain a lot of good information. And let me just summarize this one. The red curve here is the cumulative of your hit rate. Hit rate is hits divided by hits plus misses, which is sort of natural. Passes are ignored. And so this is the cumulative hit rate over all time. So by 100, the hit rate was an average of maybe 58%. Here it's up to like 59%. Early on, just because there are less totals, it tends to oscillate more. But this leveling off neglects the 10-day, which is what's your short term doing? That's the blue. The blue is the 10-day. Notice it's the last 10 predictions, ignoring passes. So it's a 10-day moving average. So this person, after 22 or so, was up at 80%. Then by 40 something, dropped down to 10%. We see this too much. It's all psychological. I don't know what was going on, but seeing this as much as I have, it's something like the fear of success. It's something like, can I really be this good? What's it going to mean to my life if I can stay up at 80%, go up to 90%, go up to 100%? I mean, look at this trend. For some reason, there is too often a huge rebound. Even here, got up to 90%, but here the rebound was only down to 40%. Now it looks like might really be oscillating, where the green curve, which is the 25-day moving average, looks like it's settling in at 62, 63%. Okay, that's getting close to being enough to be a Precog Pro. We want 64%, so this is very close. And this person may be there already. This chart is oldish. But what we're looking for are people who will be into this and get up to the 70% with a chart like this, where it'll oscillate, say, between 70 and 80% would be really the best. So oscillate over 75%, but oscillate around 70% would certainly be pretty good. Okay, so this chart has that kind of information. What was going on when you see something like this? I suggest asking your sub and working it and seeing if you can get rid of all the noise that was going on in here. What a wonderful recovery, though. Okay, any questions about any of that? Okay, where does the computer select the side A or side B photo? Is it done after or before the target event? Okay. Um, Niles, you're asking these privately, and you really don't have to. These are really good questions. And there's a way of sending it off to everybody, but I just read it. The computer selects what photosite A is in terms of up or down, and then photosite B is the opposite, down or up. It does that during the tasking. So it sets that up at the very beginning, and it's the only one that knows that. Now, the possible targets are chosen after you upload your transcript. This guarantees its precognition. Only when you hit the submit button to upload the transcript are the two possible targets chosen. And those are chosen from a set of about 800 pre-selected pairs of possible targets. We try to make them as different as possible, but we always get complaints about that. You try to do 800 and see how well you do. I'm always open to people giving me new ones because I can add them or incorporate them. But that's done. The two possible targets are chosen after the analyst actually uploads the transcript. And that's when the two targets are shown, and that's when they're shown to you. And then, of course, the feedback target is based on what the actual outcome is. So if side A was associated with up and the market moved up, you would see side A. If it was down, you would see side B. The possible target becomes a real target then. And I guess one thing I haven't said here is up and down, we use limits and stops. And when we give you our prediction, we will always show you what the limit and stop is. And that's from the opening price on the day. So we get in either with a buy or a sell at 6:30 a.m. Pacific time. That's 9:30 a.m. New York Stock Exchange time. And then we have a stopper limit on the SPY to get out. And if we're not out by 1 o'clock, we get out at 1 o'clock no matter what. So I discussed that in the previous one of these in detail when I discussed financials. But anyway, I just summarized it here. Okay. Okay, so now let's move on to our new prediction. And notice here what I've already done, and this is the tasking, which went to the webinar workshop members. And you guys are all welcome to join and see future ones. But I don't just have time to do that for everybody every time. But nevertheless, this is an example here. This is an educational workshop. So here was the event. Will SPY move up again, but that's between today and a month from now, the 12:03, which is the day before my next webinar, and all prices are taken at 1 p.m. So again, we've asked the same question. And, you know, a lot of this started when we did a prediction about whether Hillary would become the next president. We said no, and did that on a workshop, and everybody laughed, but it turned out to be right. But I no longer like to do onesies. ARV works best in situations where you take advantage of the edge it gives you. Since nobody is yet at 90% regularly, I just feel it's better to do things like this, where you're looking for an edge over chance. So this is the tasking. Let me now click this. And these numbers here are unique to this tasking. what I am doing is copying that, and I want to put this in here for everyone. Yep. Okay, so when you click that link, which I hope all of you have, you will then get a page that looks just like this, and you will put in your email address, and then you will get your unique coordinate. Remember, we discussed this earlier. Now you're ready to do it. So you will make a, yep, hello, what was that? Was there a question? Lorraine? Okay, I'm going to mute you then. So that's it. Some of you who are old bees and have your own approach, you're welcome to start. Lorraine, do you have a question? Okay, no question. I'm going to mute you, though, is all. You can unmute yourself if you have a question at any time. So anybody that feels comfortable starting now with their coordinate, go ahead and do it, and do the upload, and we will talk about the transcripts shortly. But for the newbies, what I want to do is take you through a little bit of this. Some people like, and on a sheet of paper, you've got your coordinate now, and if anybody doesn't have their coordinate, let me know right now. So each of you has your coordinates. You put that on the top of a page, your name, the date, the time. These are like preliminaries. A lot of people put a line across. And I have a sheet like this, which some people still use, which is a kind of reminder of all the information which your subconscious can give you about the target. And often, we'll start with something like an ideogram to get things started. Sometimes it's a pictogram for some people. It looks a little bit like it. And then the big picture gestalts usually start coming pretty quickly, but everybody's a little different. And then there's room for sketches, and then always the AOLs put over on the right, analytical overlays, and I also call it trash. Once you get rid of it, you can get back into your normal session. However, Tom really doesn't want that, and there's some merit in that. Let the sensual, let the elements come up as they will, and put them down in order. You do your ideogram, describe it, the gestalt. If you're a CRVer, it will be the IAB. But do that with your coordinate, and then as you start getting more information, left to right, up and down, so your analysts can know exactly how the information came in. And here is something which Joe McMonagle and Ed May. Joe is one of the best, if not the best, public remote viewer around. He's just done so much in public, on TV, in other countries, remarkably successful. And Ed May is a scientist that's been with this since the beginning. And took over from Hal Puthoff. Now, here's what they say. What is clear, at least to those of us on our long-established team, is that intention, attention, and expectation play a very important role in the success of both application and research of remote viewing. Intention, attention, expectation. Absolutely right. But I have, and what's your intention and expectation to describe and sketch your feedback. But here's a quote which actually came, and I'm not quite sure from whom, but it came from the workshop, and intention will not make things happen. It will only set the direction. You still have to make the journey. You need to take action. Okay, so that's what we're about to do now. I suggest relaxing. I'm about to give you 10 minutes. Joe McMonagle believes cool down is very important. He used it to get in touch with that place where the subconscious is in touch with the target. He used to take a fair amount of time on that, got it down to like 5 minutes. Now it's probably even less than that. Tom does it differently with CRV. He did one for Ingo, and it looked like it was 15, 20 seconds. He bowed his head down and then just started. So all of this is very personal. The viewer is in charge. What I'm going to do is put on HemiSync with its by Neural Beats. I'm going to give you 10 minutes total. Um, um, use whatever part of that as you want for cool down. The idea is to get in touch with your subconscious. Use your inner deep free will. I suggest the idea of breathing and just getting into the now moment of breathing, and then move your consciousness, your subconsciousness, which is going to connect with your consciousness, to the target. At about 2 minutes, a narrator will come on to remind you to turn inward and witness and write and draw on your transcript what your sub provides. So at this point, take a few breaths, and I am going to start now, and I will get you back, and I'll give you a 1 minute warning. Okay. You now have about a minute to go. You can get another one or two elements if you wish, or you may be done. Very good. Why don't you come on back to your normal state? Do another little stretch. Okay. Excellent. I hope that felt good. Most people just enjoy doing that. And now, oh, I see. Niles. Yes, the risk reward ratio is very close to 1 because we choose our limit distance, stop and limit distance to be relatively small. And there have been studies that show the stock market really is pretty much random. So we feel pretty comfortable with that. And even if it weren't, describing and sketching the best target, the actual target will get you hit every time if you describe it well enough that your analyst gives the right answer. Okay, so you have now got your transcript. Let's do analysis. And then we can upload. So the online approach, and you were here to get your coordinate. This is where you will do your upload. But let's now, so some people, especially if they're not comfortable with computers, have some trouble here. But this is where you would go. You would click the browse and your transcript, either a smartphone, a scanner, to get it on your computer. We accept JPEGs. We accept pretty good formats. Multi-page ones can come in either a PDF. Most people are using PDF these days, or it could be a doc, but it can't be a docx. The program we use goes back to when they were just .docs, but you could save it there. So I'm just stalling a little bit to make sure that all of you are okay with the browsing, because it's only then that you can see, again, photo site A will come up, then photo site P, then both. So you could then do your judging. And how about trying the HAG judging this time? Here's TARG. So it's always going to be 0 to 7. But the HAG approach, be harsh. And if it doesn't strictly correlate to possible target A, don't put an A next to that element. Same thing with B. And then when it comes time to do your gestalts, it's always between 0 and 1. And don't let confirmation bias creep in. Be real about it. Rigorous, assiduous, judicious, and discerning when assessing the correlation of first impression gestalts. So on your transcript, you'll be putting capital A's, capital B's, and maybe an A space F if it looks like it's a really good first impression gestalt. And then when you do your elements, you only count up the elements you have labeled as A or B. So there may very well be some elements that have nothing next to them. Don't use that in this equation. So fig plus this ratio of the number of elements divided by the total number of actual data elements where there's a match. And then, of course, the same for B. And then all that gets multiplied by 3.5. Okay, Penny, thank you for joining us. Thank you too, Katina. So this was the example we used. So now what I want to do is do something that most people don't see. As the group manager, I will get to see all of your predictions. And so let's do that now, and I'll see how many of you are doing that. So here, 11:06, 12:03. Yes. Here we go. Okay, so I have 1, 2, 3 people who got their photo sites, still doing judging. And judging, take as much time as you need. It's the analyst who makes the choice, really, of yes or no, based on getting a good match with photosite A or photosite B. Are any of you having problems? I'll just assume you're all doing your analysis now, though. As far as I can tell, just 3 of you have actually uploaded your transcripts. And that's fine. If you didn't feel comfortable enough to do something, I think you may just simply want to just pass this time around, but hopefully you'll feel comfortable joining a group and doing it in the comfort of your own home. Karen. Okay, so Niles and Lorraine, you two did not do sessions for one reason or another. I just want to make sure I'm following this properly. Yeah. I didn't see you before, Tracy, but I used your hit from last month as an example. Very well done. Yeah, I'll be interested to see what you do this. Yep. No, Karen, ask the question now. That's fine. You can even unmute yourself and ask it. You know, people are now in an intellectual mode um, doing the analysis, so it's okay to talk.
Okay, I just unmuted myself, Marty.
Yeah, good. And I hear you fine.
Okay, great. So my head sort of blew up on the slides that you showed earlier on those mathematical formulas. And I've been, I've done about 9 sessions and mostly learning how to do the ratings via some of, watching some of your recorded webinars.
Mm-hmm.
So now I have no confidence in my ability to rate. Now I have on my session transcript, I've noted those that conform, that match A, but I'm just stuck on assigning a numerical value. Shall I force myself to do that?
Wait, if you've marked the ones that are A,
Yes.
and you've done the same thing for B?
Correct.
Okay, so now you've got a total number of data elements. In other words, every element that has either an A, a B, or an AB, that's what goes under here.
Oh, okay. And those that have neither A or B, I just don't
Ignored.
count.
They're ignored. So that's what this term is. And then you need to make a judgment about the fig. And then you take the sum of those two and multiply by 3.5.
Okay. All right. All right. I'll mute myself while I see if I can do that.
Yeah, and it's judgment. It's not always very clear.
Okay. And just to clarify, fig, I'm sorry, tell me one more time what fig equates to.
First impression gestalts.
Okay, okay, perfect.
Yeah,
Thank you.
first, yeah.
Okay.
So, mountains, snow, water, the big picture stuff that if something were to just flash real quickly, that's what would register.
Okay.
Okay, very good.
Okay, I'll mute myself and do the math. And that, okay.
Right. And then you know how to put in your CR. So.
Yes, I do.
Right. You've done it before.
Uh-huh.
And everybody else is comfortable with that as well, hopefully. And if they're not, unmute yourself or put it in the chat box. Okay, so. And please complete the process, even if it's a pass. I wish I had timed this, but my analysis sessions usually take, I would say 15 to 20 minutes. And that's about maybe what we're looking at here. Okay, thank you, Lorraine. I see your comment there. Okay. While the other, I have one person who is now finished. And again, since this is so analytical, I think it's okay for the other of you two to finish, or you could mute me. But I'm going to open that so we can begin to discuss that with everybody else. So this was Aveline. And let me first open her transcript. Okay, that's good. I'll put you there. So this is the one there. Okay. I'm going to get rid of this one. And now let's get the photo. Oh, I only want to show the one you chose. So you went with side 2. So I'm not going to show the side 2 photo. That's there. And let me copy it. There we go. Oh, where is it? Ah. Okay, there you go, Aveline. One page. Okay. Okay, Aveline, why don't you put your, first of all, yeah, unmute yourself, or I can do that. And let's just make sure this is right. This is the one that you got a match on. Certainly biological, small, fluffy, soft, orange. Yeah, probably some cream in there. Inside, bright cream circles. Concave. No water, man-made, walled. What is that word? Oh, checkered. Okay. Feels like a joy to behold. Kitten and breaks. Okay, can you talk? Are you still there? Or you can use the chat box. But you gave yourself a 5, and I can't quarrel with that. I would like to know what your ratio was and what your fig was, just for interest here. I think you might have left, huh? Okay, but I'm looking at this, and I certainly can't quarrel with a 5. There's a lot that matches in terms of the fig, the person. I think you actually said person. You said biological. Yeah, biological. And a lot of small stuff. You got that right away. Okay, well, this is an example of what one person did. Aveline, you're not there, correct? Okay. So let's go see if I've got somebody else now. And I can get rid of that. Let's go back here. Okay, I now have Karen. And Karen went with side 1 with the 3.5. Let's see. Here you go, Karen. Let me first get your transcript. It's interesting to see other people's styles. And most of you that I've seen anyway are not doing CRV. Some are doing reduced forms. Okay, let me now get here. And Karen, and you went with side 1, which is there. Let me make that a little bigger. Okay. And very good. Okay, Karen, are you able to talk and unmute yourself? Good.
Yes, I'm unmuted.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about this.
Okay.
What did you mark as a match?
Okay, the items I marked as matched actually were the items I wrote down. Let's see. So starting on the top left, let's skip the brown is the second item. Brown, and then icky ucky was my impression. Far away,
That's pretty good. Yeah.
and then
Okay.
I didn't give any credit to the next one, which says liberation or liberated.
Right.
The next one is ugly. The next one is I would not stay long. And the next one is one slip, one of these, and you're dead.
Wow, okay.
Sitting on the ground is the viewer's perspective. I didn't count the next one, which is clicking. Now, over in AOL, I thought I had some matches. Babble, mud, bat, the fellow with the
Yep, I
brown,
see.
he's holding, yep, and then
Yeah.
Rocky,
Okay.
the
I
Rocky
agree with
wall.
most of those. The babble I might not agree with, but that's
Yeah,
okay. It's yours.
yeah.
That's just not as clear. Mud is obviously clear. Most of those are clear. Okay. So what did you get for your ratio of that, all of those to whatever the total was? It must have been reasonably high or not?
Yeah, well, if I did the math right, so by plugging my numbers into that
Formula.
formula, it was 10 for fig.
1, you mean?
Oh, 1. Oh, I did it wrong. Okay, I did it wrong. But I had 11. How about if you walk me through it? I had 11,
Okay.
11 elements, and then
The total that, including what the other one was, that were marked.
yeah,
In
the
other
other
words,
one. Oh, I'm sorry. The other one I got 0, which has never happened. I got absolutely 0 for the photo site B.
no elements matched at all.
No.
Okay, so then your ratio is going to be 1 for your fraction,
Oh, okay.
right? I mean, all the marked
Oh,
ones.
right. Okay.
So that's so important that and I know you're not the only one who doesn't get this. It takes a while for it to sink in, but once it sinks in, it's easy. Now
Okay.
the fig has to be between 0 and 1. So when you multiply by 3.5, the sum of what you've got inside those parentheses
Right.
has to be a maximum of 2. Now, what did you give your fig? You
Well,
gave it a
that's
10. Does that mean a 1?
that's where I went wrong. I misunderstood. I thought the fig, was the gestalt or the very first impressions. And I thought that would be counting up my first impressions. So mend the error. What are
Ah,
yeah, correct me, please.
yeah, it's not counting them up. It's
Okay.
saying roughly what fraction, roughly, of the figs that you could have gotten did you get?
Mm,
That's looking at the picture and going this way. In other words, it's a
oh,
fraction between 0 and 1
because one would be total or
total.
all. Oh, okay. Well then, and this is where it's a little bit more, I mean, I can't
But
quantify that, correct?
and not as well as the other, but you
Okay.
can to a certain extent because
Okay.
let's what do you think a fig might be? You think,
Oh,
brown, maybe, you know, the color brown might actually, you first look at that and brown's going to hit you, but purple might hit you more over here.
oh,
Um,
I didn't even notice that just now until you told me, huh?
okay,
um,
so you when you looked at it, brown was the dominant color to you.
yeah, the
Okay, and
stone,
I can
this,
see
yeah.
that, so maybe you could mark that as a fig. Icky, I think, is for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Probably this is pretty ugly. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I think you captured the gestalt
Okay.
of this, and then the bat. So what did you miss? Did you put people? Believe it, in all of this, you missed people.
I often do miss people. I don't think
Okay,
there's anything here that could refer to people. I don't see anything.
so that's why you would not give it a gestalt of 1.
Okay, so I might give it a 7, gestalt of 7.
Point is between
Point
0
7.
and 1.
Yes. Okay.
So 0.7 might not be too bad. Yeah.
Okay. And so then it would be point 0.7 plus
1.
plus 1 times 3.5.
So 1.7 times 3.5.
All right, 1.7 times 3.5, 24.5. Doing my math as quickly as I can.
Oh, you got to get a calculator.
Well, I usually use my phone.
Right.
Okay, so
Okay.
this says 59.5. Wait, can't be 59.5. Must be 5.9.
It's 1.7 times
Right.
3.5.
Okay,
And that's
yeah,
5.95, which is a
5.9.
6. So
That
this
seems
comes
high.
out much higher
Yeah.
than the way you did it, where you just thought you're going to
Yeah.
give it a minimal.
Yeah. My confidence is usually low during the analysis.
Right. But I would
Yeah.
say, notice if you gave the fig a 0.5. Let's
Mm-hmm.
just see what that would have done.
Okay.
1.5 times 3.5, because this is where the big judgment, it's a big judgment.
Mm-hmm.
1.5 times 3.5. That's a 5.25.
Oh, still
So,
pretty respectable.
right, exactly.
Huh.
And, mostly you miss the people. Now, let me just
Mm-hmm.
make one more suggestion to you.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Um, when you're at this stage, and I would say, look, I miss people. And you said you usually do. Why don't you take a side moment? And I do this every chance I get anywhere along this. I take a side moment and look at those people and get a sense of what people feel to you.
Mm.
You see what I'm saying? So next time,
Yeah.
your sub is going to give you the word people, or you'll draw something, a stick figure
Oh,
or something like that. So that's how you can learn and train yourself.
okay. Is it also possible that when I have these statements on the left, like I would not stay long, is it possible, or just messing with my mind to think next time, oh, if I have some thought that seems like mine, could it be the thoughts of those possible people in the picture?
Oh, the way I interpreted that is if I was there, I'd get out as soon as I could. But having a guy with a bat there might make it a little tough.
Right, right.
But I interpreted that as I would not stay long. Now, what feeling did you have when you wrote that?
Oh, I thought, got to get out of here. Just is not a place
Yeah.
I want to hang out. Yeah.
Well, that's perfect. That's exactly what
Oh,
you see.
okay.
You got it perfect. And you said I.
Yeah,
That was your
yeah.
feeling. There are other times when you might get a feeling of a person who was there. In fact, we might have even done that here.
Hmm.
No, but if you had gotten the word scared,
Ah,
you would have
okay.
been picking up the emotions of a person who was there.
Oh, okay.
But this time, what you picked up, and both of those happen, this is usual, both of those happen. Either way, you picked up,
Mm-hmm.
hey, if I were there, and part of your conscience, I'd want to get the hell out of there as quickly as I could.
Oh, okay. That's helpful to know. So if I actually write an emotion, that could indicate there are people in this.
Well, right.
Okay.
But you see, you did not do that. But you're
I did
right.
not.
Had you said scared or something like that, then there would have been a person. That's right.
Okay.
Okay,
Great.
that is
Thank you.
excellent. Thank
Okay.
you.
You're
That
welcome.
was that was really good. Hopefully that helped other people as well. That's why we do these, because other people are in similar situations. Let me get rid of that. Let me get rid of that, and let's see what we have now. Okay, so Tracy is side 2. Okay, so let me go get you, Tracy, and let's first do your transcript. Okay, this time you've got a combination of words and text, so we'll leave that there. Well, you had a combination last time too, but it was
It's a free
really,
for all with me.
yeah. Were you here when I showed that and talked about it or not?
No, I wasn't.
Okay. Okay, and then we have this now. And let me go here. Copy that. So here's what we had. So why don't you tell me the same? What were the matches? Let's do the ratio and let's do the fig that you got.
Okay. So, I had multiple pages and the matches for this was photo B were white, black, oblong, elongated, domed. I gave a little b, modeled, irregular, humanoid, light or white, dark and irregular. My stick figure, orange, because she has an orange bow. And then I sketched a woman with sandy or dark blonde hair. Female androgynous, which I guess is arguable, but if you think of a gymnast body.
Right.
Occupational, let's see, small b's for blue and gray, because there are little specks of those colors. And then shiny, like slightly shiny, and there's a metal shiny bar.
Okay, and what did you mark as figs?
I only marked one. for that, and I said, humanoid, I was thinking, like as in biological. I probably just could have called it biological, but
No, humanoid was great. Where did you have that?
if you scroll down to where you see the picture of her,
Oh, okay. Well,
I wrote human. Let me see.
yeah,
Oh,
this
sorry,
is
on page 1, third column, page 1, the last written descriptor on the right before the.
humanoid, right? But this certainly would be a fig as well. You can mark them both.
Could I? Okay.
And but let's finish with that. I want to see what else you might have. Did you get colors?
So,
Yeah, you look at this. You got white and black first thing. I would take that as a fig too, especially
okay.
when it comes so early.
I
White,
wasn't really sure. I was trying to underestimate.
yeah. I mean, you got white and black right away.
Okay.
And I look at that, and again, if it were to flash, certainly that's what I would see. And I would see the person. You gave yourself what, a 5?
I think I did just before actually calculating, and I didn't want to be reaching too much with that sketch. But if I look at her, and I look at this kind of shape and then the oblong bar, I guess you could make a case for that being on target.
Oh, yeah. No, this looks good to me. This looks like it would be ignored. It's interesting. I don't know what was in your mind then. That's interesting. No, this,
I saw a mushroom cloud like shape.
yeah. But you want to know something? I could almost see that coming out of this.
Okay.
The top of this, and this being a stem. Now I'm stretching, but I wouldn't give it any credit, just as you did. No
Okay.
credit. But it's good to try to understand what your mind might have been doing. Fair enough. Now I want to share with you, because I don't think you were here,
No.
changes to the technique. For one thing, when you start giving little b's, that says it's marginal.
Okay.
This thing we're calling HAG, harsh analysis gestalt, says make it clear.
Okay.
That would have reduced the number of A elements for you,
Okay.
because you had, well, B elements in your case. You did B, I think.
Yeah.
It would have reduced the number of B elements. It also would have reduced the total number of data elements
Okay.
that were marked. So I want you to understand what this total number of data elements is. It's all the elements which are marked with either A or a B or both.
Okay.
So if that mushroom cloud thing wasn't marked with either, it doesn't count in the
Okay.
total number of data elements. You with me?
Yes.
Okay. And then your fig, I mean, you got black, white, you got a humanoid with the right kind of hand. I think you nailed that. So I would have to give that a 1 or a 0.1. I don't know what you didn't get. What else is a gestalt? If you had to talk about the gestalts here, what else? Maybe horizontal lines, but I think you might have even said something about that. I can't remember if you said anything horizontal.
Well, elongated and oblong.
Yeah, well, that's what these are. But I would give a fig of like at least maybe 0.8 or something like that to this. And if you did a 1, you could probably argue that. But being conservative is okay. You want to be harsh. That's the whole point of this.
Okay.
But it's certainly more than 0.5.
Okay.
So you ended off giving it a 5, I believe. I think if you would use that formula with the kind of understandings that I added, which And that's all I can do is give you my perceptions of this. Ultimately, the viewer is in charge, but I think it would have been even higher.
Okay, great.
Very good. Thank you. There's that. There's that. Oh, we've done all three. So now, are there any questions on this? Having seen all this, those of you that didn't do sessions but maybe wanted to, do you have questions at all?
Hi, Marty. This is Nils.
Okay, good. Hi.
Yeah. What about images, scribbles, drawings, diagrams, that kind of stuff? How do we rate that?
Usually, it's funny you asked that because this will give me an excuse way to go back. But wait, I want to make sure I can get back to this page. So it's there. Okay. God, I say okay a lot. Usually, oh, I got rid of her transcript. But if you remember her transcript, she had a face. Okay, that counts as one element. Though she then said dark hair, that counts as another element. However, sometimes, and this is what I want to share with you, and it turns out to be in her
So you're saying two
prediction.
elements in addition to the word elements?
Well, here, if the structure is simple, then you just count it as one element. This was a complicated sketch. So look, in this sketch, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 A's in one sketch. Well, this was a word, this was a word. But due to the sketch, I broke it up. I thought this was significantly different than this. You know, it wasn't just a face. This was a feature. You see what I'm saying? So sometimes sketches can have in them more than one element. And so you might put in 1, 2, 3 different, in this case, I put in 3 different A's into one sketch because the sketch had so much structure in it, it didn't make sense to just give it 1 A.
Okay, so a good diagram could actually have a lot more weight overall in a session if it's good.
Yeah, and right. And if you mark the stuff that's good in it, right, it counts like that. Now, once you start doing that, remember you're leaving out, like this thing I didn't mark, that might come in the other one. This one might match the other one. But again, we're only looking for matches with A and then matches with B. I hope that helps. You know what? I want to do.
Yeah, so it's a judgment call basically on the diagram.
Yes. And yes. And the same thing on the fig. Though the way I look at it is if I believe it's a harsh and should be a fig, then I take the percentage usually of how many could have been figs and what they got, but not always. It's a judgment call because sometimes if the person got all the figs but one, and that one was maybe a marginal fig, then I might rank it differently. But
Okay.
each person needs to come up with their own way. The idea is as long as you understand the concept is first impression gestalts are very important. Joe properly called that out as being worth 50%. So you get something between a 0 and a 1. Now, how much should you do? Just like all the other ones, do you mark it as an A or do you not mark it as an A? You have to make a kind of judgment. I do want to go back though to really clarify this because it's an important question to Tracy's transcript. Notice here, when she did the face, this is one thing, it's a face. I would give that an A. But then she added sandy, dark, well, I'd give that, a B. She was doing Bs. So I'd give that another B. So this sketch with the words would have gotten 2 Bs. Now, I don't know if I would have given another B to female, maybe. This could have gotten 3 Bs. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, makes
And in
sense.
fact, I would give it a B, because when things are repeated, and I asked Tom specifically about that, he says when it's repeated, your sub is saying it's important. So mark it again. So this whole area actually got 1, 2, 3 Bs.
But it's the initial impression that hits you when you start the session, right? It's not all the major words for the entire session, right? It's only the big thing that hits you, right?
For the fig.
Yeah, for the fig, yes.
Yeah, but you don't know until you get to match it with the picture, with the actual picture. And then you can see how many figs. Do I have the picture still? Let me see. It might be there. No. Wait, I really want everybody to understand this. Let me see if it's still here. Okay, there it is. Right? This was the picture that went with this. So it's only during the analysis that you have the opportunity to mark. And in this case, this fig came later in the session, but it's clearly a matched fig, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, sure.
Right. Now, Tom says something about structure, but this actually fits. The pictures usually come a little bit later after the words, though she got a picture here. But all I'm saying is, with this being the possible target, I would get a B here, and a B there.
And in that session, what is the fig per your definition in that session?
A female, a face, and white and black.
Okay.
In other words, if you were to flash this, see, horizontal would sort of be marginal, but there is a lot of horizontal there. But if you were to flash this, at a millisecond, and they've done experiments on that, I think that's what you would pick up. You'd pick up a lot of black, you'd pick up a lot of white. I think you'd pick up the face, but maybe not. Maybe the face should not be part of the fig, and that's a judgment you're going to have to make. But especially since you got black and white, first thing, I would mark those as figs for sure.
Okay. And maybe the face, but you're a maybe.
Yes. Well, I would mark it.
Marty, can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, please.
And I'm not trying to force this to fit, but one of the first things I felt was a domed shape, like a half a circle, like upside down. And that is the shape kind of that her body is making. Of course, it's not perfect.
Right.
But, I mean, I know how it felt, but I don't know if that also,
Right.
I don't think I counted that as a hit, but, that was like the flash.
That's interesting. I hear what you're saying, and being harsh, I would not count that.
Okay.
And yet I see what you're saying. And, at the very end, when you finally put in your CR, remember, it's up to the analyst, puts in the CR, maybe they would up it a little bit because of that. And, and things like that. But I don't think you have to. I think you might have learned something about your subconscious that, yeah, that does look domed. In fact, I even said your subconscious might have done this for the same reason, but that's not harsh kind of judging.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. No, you do. And you have a stick figure here too. So I'd mark that as well. I wouldn't mark, well, yeah, I'd mark that. Now this was an excellent session. I think everybody would agree. Okay, so let me now, the next step in all of this, and we're approaching 3 o'clock, even 3 hours seems to be longer than most people can handle. They have lives, and I understand that. let me now where's my judging? Oh, I went out of my way to try to save it, and now I lost it. I made it full screen. Okay, I can get it again. Let me just get it again. Huh. Oh, wait, I think it's maybe moved over to here. Aha. Okay, so there it is. So notice this is the three people. We've looked at them individually, but then as part of the process, there needs to be a group manager judgment. And these are always problematic. Because notice what we have here. We have 2 no's and 1 yes. And we looked at Karen's, even though she ranked it relatively low, it came up like it should have been maybe higher. But I must admit, these 2, which were ranked high, might have even been higher yet again. And you got a 0. That's important too. All of you people put 0. Did you put 0 for the other? No, you ranked the others. Okay. Well, I am going to see, and now I do see which is yes and no, which biases me, unfortunately. But I've got 2 yes, 1 no. So hard. So hard. But I wish I had more people. I am going to go with the yes. I remember the 1 no was so emotional that your emotional judging might have gotten involved and caused what's called a displacement. I don't know what the other one was, but it's hard to believe it was as emotional as that one. And you certainly described it well. Okay, so I am going to go with side 1, which is a yes. And you understand why, for better or worse. So I'm actually predicting that Karen, that you did a displacement because of the emotionality of the one that you did so well. Okay. Okay, so let me just, so I did this right. Side 1 is yes. There is no line for this because it's just the difference. And that's it. Okay, so it'll be next month until we finish. I know the outcome of that. And we just did our prediction. We did our cool down.
I have another question, Marty.
Yes, please.
You have a great database there with a lot of people and their ARV predictions. Have you done any statistics on the distribution of right versus wrong predictions? Does it follow a Gaussian distribution on the number of people are right and so forth? And could you
with the mean varying, because what we're always looking for is the mean. Look, I have wanted to, and have on a couple of occasions, maybe 3, given access to our database so somebody could do that. I simply don't have time.
Oh,
What I do is now keep data on each individual so I can look for, I've always done that actually, keep data on the individual so I can find the Precog pros. And sometimes someone has to come to me and say, hey, I think I should be a Precog pro, and I can look at their individual data and see if they have those big dips or whatever. I've now laid out what the exact rules are to become a Precog pro. So that's where my focus is. The group prediction, in my opinion, is really of secondary importance for the reasons I just said. I made a judgment about someone getting a displacement. I don't like to do that. You know, mostly what I do in the full groups is I simply do a count, and I'd like them to be more than 2 away from each other. In other words, I'd like one side to be 2 over the other side, and then I'm willing to go in that direction. Otherwise, I'll pass. I didn't do that this time because having seen what the other one was, it might have, in fact, I'll go look at that pairing. I might even take a look at what that pairing is. But for self-judges, when one is super emotional, it has an impact.
yeah, very interesting. Because you could use a student t-test on any of the group predictions and compare it against, you know, your database if it's a Gaussian distribution, and do all kinds of analysis like that.
Would you like to volunteer to do that?
Sure.
Okay. Let's talk separately, and I'll give you access, and I'll show you what all the data is, and
Right.
you can go at it.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Let me tell you what you need to do. Send me an email reminding me of this, and that'll start our conversation.
Sure.
Okay?
Sounds good.
Okay. Now, group, you know, we're interested in building up individual precoggers to get up to high levels because they've gotten rid of the noise, they've worked it out, they've gotten rid of personal blocks, whatever it takes. It's a personal process. The group prediction is really of secondary importance. And I always say when there are group predictions that you should go with your own, even if you were all by yourself and there were 7 other people against you. I happen to say that because that happened just the other day. We're getting close to the end here, and look at this. And what makes you think you deserve therapy for low self-esteem? All of this makes the point about personal confidence. Getting through misses. No one yet is 100%. I believe that it's going to be possible to be steady at 80%. Right now, most of you, let's go for 70%, 75%, plus or minus 5%. But that's going to happen as you get rid of the noise and identify it. And you are the best one to do this. There is nobody else. This is you, and this is you, and you deserve it to have a strong personal confidence. Having an intention to do that will not make things happen. It'll only set the direction. And that's where I think all of us in this work are doing. I feel I'm working on becoming a better analyst. I just don't get a chance to do too many sessions, but an analysis, as I hope you now appreciate, is very important. But I'm on the journey. Every time I analyze a session, I learn a little something. Joe McMonagle said it's all psychological. It's deep inside where the noise is coming from. You know, it's pure in the matrix. It's the UCC, the Akashic record, all the information is out there. Getting it to your conscious mind is the challenge, and that's what precognition is all about. And in spite of any evidence to the contrary, it's up to each of us to like develop new actions to support knowing that you will achieve a steady 70% to 80% plus hit rate and learn more and more about yourself, ourselves, each of us. When you really understand this, and I believe you are all getting this more and more, it really comes down to just you. The key sessions are the remote viewing session, that's you. At a later time, it's the feedback session. This is the information that is being shared. Yes, you write it down here, comes from here. This is like telepathy. You're a different person, right? Every second that goes by, you're somehow changed. Certainly can look at this as you're a different person. So it's like a telepathy, but it's between you. So this target information is available to you from your subby, deeper self, higher self. I'm getting tired of saying that, but some people always object when I use subconscious. Know this is a very deep or high level, and let the target info flow into your consciousness from your submerged consciousness. This is mostly an allowing. You're being a witness and writing it down. That's your ego physical self's only job. The rest is you trust your deeper self to take appropriate actions to achieve your precog consciousness goals. So when you're doing your remote viewing session, just trust that what you're getting is right on and just put it down. Okay. And this is my last slide. I wish all of you health, wealth, and wisdom. I really believe what we're doing here assists that. Okay, thank you all for joining me. Any last questions or comments?
Thank you.
And you're very welcome.
Marty, Karen, I have a quick question.
Sure, shoot.
You said we could sign up for other groups so we can get more practice. How would we request to get assigned to a group, a different group?
To be more than one group, you have to be a full member. So that means a paid member at $55 a year. So that gives you access to not only multi-groups, but all of our past webinars, the talk ones, what we just had with Dean Radin, Tom McNair, all of that stuff is for members only. So there are a lot of other things. And then once you do that, just send me an email and I'll forward it to the right person who will put you in as many groups as you like.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. You all take care and keep precogging.